never have too much Willy. Rog had emailed me last week and said, so I'll be reading from your biography. And I said, Rog's too much Maley. And then Alan Reid walked in tonight and said, so I'll be reading a few of your poems. Began to wonder who I was. But I read some poems earlier about my father. This is a poem about my mother. Can you hear me okay, yeah? This is a poem about my mother, who developed Alzheimer's late in life, which took away her recent memory, but made her vividly recall moments from her past. This is called The World Backwards. When my mother was at school, the teacher wrote on the board, "The poor man worked in the field all day." Up went her hand. Why was he poor if he worked in the field all day? That's not the point, the teacher said. The lesson's grammar, not society. Now, with her memory moth-eaten and memory lane a cul-de-sac, the doctor asks her to spell world backwards, which she does quicker than I could. Then he stumps her with "Who's on the throne?" and other such trifling impertinences, nothing to do with her life or anybody else's. Later, she turns to me and says, "Is Elizabeth still the Queen? I think she married a Greek." Since my diagnosis, my dreams are different, more vivid, visceral. One of the grandsons who'd been having nightmares recently asked me a question that got me thinking. This is called waking dreams. "Grandad, where are dreams? Are they in the room with you?" "No, they're in here," I say, and pat his head and fasten his shoe. Yet thinking, as I lately do, about how those silent movies I used to dream in black and white are epics now, with sense-around sound and explosions of light, streets and squares I navigate on foot or bus or in a car I've never driven, through carousels, carnivals, chaos and flight. More real almost than the life I'm living, as if this life, more finite by the day, extends into night as compensation, displaying worlds beyond my head, not of my creation. And to get cheerier still, we're all going to die. I once said this at a university gathering. It was a Ref UK university research meeting at which somebody was presenting a philosophy department end-of-life project, which I was very attracted to. This was several years ago, even then. And somebody was saying, "But how much impact does it have?" And I said, "Well, we're all going to die." And that seemed to upset a few people present, even one with a large cross on their chest. So we're all going to die, but we carry on as if this isn't the case. Though some of us have a good idea of the likely cause of our death. When I got my diagnosis and it said 3 to 5 years, I was thinking, I can now cross the road while the bus is coming. You can run down my bus. No! 5 years. So, as an academic, I lived by deadlines that fell behind me like all the time. Now that word takes on a different meaning. This is called deadline. I'm not dying, nor am I denying. I'm just living, I say. Nowhere to be but in the day, though I dwell in the 17th century, among fragments and quotes, citations and footnotes. Dosey Taxel running through my veins to strains of Abbey Road and Ogden's Nut Gone Flake, and nerves in my feet jangling, keeping me awake. I think about the lucky ones who go suddenly and never know. Oh, the highs and lows, the tiny hopes, then down I head to the forest of dread. What if? What now? What to choose? Should I begin a book? I joked, I'm going to interrupt the point, but I joked to my oncologist, should I start a book? He said, "What are you going to write?" And I said, "No, read a book." So, what to choose? Should I begin a book? Make plans? Get new shoes? I also said that to a colleague. I said, "I'm due a new pair of trousers. Is it worth it?" can hang them on. Seriously, in the early days I wasn't sure about prognosis. The deadline ahead is too tight to mention. I've got to keep laughing and hope for an extension. And we just get more and more optimistic. This is another in the same theme. This is called When I Die. I used to say you should have a pre-funeral. And it's a fantastic idea. You would lie in the coffin, people would come round, they would talk about it, you would hear it all. I mean, why should you not be at that event? It's a fantastic opportunity. And then you would get up and so on. And then, instead of people flying in for your funeral and spending a lot of money, you could just say, you just quietly passed away. We've been there. You'd have. So I'm still advocating for that. So this is called When I Die. I want my enemies to crow, to piss where flowers grow, on a bed above my head, or where my ashes blow, like a doubt snuffed out in a glass of beer. I want nothing sincere from those who lurked at the graveside, hiding a smirk. May they stand and sneer, let them think their curses worked. I once had an idea for a story I'll never write about somebody watching a funeral, and then after the funeral goes away, somebody stands, opens their coat and pisses on the grave, and then it would be why that was happening. Feel be my guest. So this last poem brings me back to politics and the struggle against fascism, still urgent today. But remember, fascists are not people who disagree with you. They're not. Fascism is a bit more ugly and complicated. When my father came home from Spain in 1937, a young man, 17 years of age, called Steve Fullerton, went to hear him speak at meetings in Glasgow and was inspired to volunteer for the International Brigades. Steve was wounded at the Battle of Ebro in 1938. When I met him towards the end of his life, he was quite frail, and I had to lean in to hear what he was saying. When I did, I found him to be clear as a bell and still full of fight. So this is for Steve. It's called The Last Brigadista. Hard of hearing, but never tired of talking. Dim of eye, yet more clear-sighted than anyone I knew. Soft-spoken, straight-talking. You held on to a passion for La Pasionaria, while others bit the bullet of bitterness and compromise. The cap, the stick, the medals, the kind of old boy you'd see rattling a can on Remembrance Day. No backward look was yours, no vain sacrifice for king and country, but the small defiant voice that says, no more. Here we make our stand. They shall not pass. No passerà!
I forgot.
I hope we get him first place and this is both of them.